Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Wednesday. And I thought we'd start out in the West today because that seems to be where the action is with this upper level swirl that you see spinning around through Idaho into Montana, Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. And this is going to actually wind up being quite the little mid-May snowstorm for that part of the country. So I figured let's take a look at that first. And when we go to the GFS for the next couple of days. So we've got this low that's developing in the southern plains here, actually in western Kansas, and that's going to probably mean for some severe weather threat today. This is all going to be part of the math that we're seeing, let's call it. And I'm going to let me fix this up. This is like one of the most sensitive websites, is the Storm Prediction Center's website. But you can see where the severe weather risk is for today as it extends up into parts of the upper Midwest. But we have this general area of thunderstorms that's going to go all the way back into the Rockies. So very, very interesting. I honestly, over the years, we don't, when we're East-based, so you don't really pay too much attention to what goes on in the West unless it's something really big. And I'm actually kind of glad that I'm doing it now because I'm starting to gain an understanding as to how things work out there. Which the meteorology is the same, of course, but the topography and everything else that you have to deal with is just different. And especially in the Rockies, I don't have to deal with an ocean as far as forecasting is concerned. So it's a good learning experience for me. And watch what the GFS does as a low develops in southeastern Colorado. Look at all this snow that it produces from western Montana all the way down into western Colorado. And that snow continues into Thursday and Thursday night and part of Friday before it winds down. So you know what? Let's take a look at what the snow forecast total snowfall is out of this. I mean, that's really amazing when you think about it, if this is right. To see 1 foot plus snows in a lot of locations here, from Colorado on up into parts of Wyoming, and then north and west into Montana and parts of Idaho, and even back through Utah. Considering the kind of winter that some of these areas had, which was very dry and relatively mild, not the case as you go on the other side of the mountains, obviously, but considering that you really didn't have that much happen at all during the winter, and you're getting it now. So this is really, I find it very, very interesting indeed. And we can take a look at what it looks like on the satellite loop today. And here's the system that's going out into the Midwest with the severe weather. And here's the next low right behind it. You can see the swirl here, very well-defined upper air system that we're looking at. This is a really, really impressive area of energy. And when we put it up on the upper air, take a look here. We'll put the upper air up, and you can see what comes out of all this. Here's the lead system. Going back to yesterday now, here's the lead system that gets kicked out, and here's this one right behind it, which is really this much stronger of the two. And it just takes days for it to settle into the Central Rockies, and then eventually over the weekend it begins to finally lift up to the northeast. So very, very impressive weather situation going on in the western part of the U.S. Now in the east, it's a very warm day that is setting up here in the eastern part of the United States. You can see how clear the satellite is from central New England all the way down into Florida, hardly a cloud in the sky. Here's our severe weather threat that's going up into the Midwest, and this weather system here is heading up this way. So none of this is coming to the east, and in fact, it's going to stay hot. It's going to stay very warm to hot in the eastern part of the U.S. for another day, and still very warm here on Friday. And here we have the beginnings of that storm that is developing out in the west. So why don't we take a look at the, I'll just show you one. I'm going to take a look at the longer term. So let's first off go back. I'm going to switch this to the east. We'll put the surface map on here and take you forward. So the first question is, well, we're going to be, no question, today we'll be in the 80s to some spots near 90. Look at this big high off the East Coast. You've got a westerly flow. Sea breezes will be kept at bay, except right along the immediate beaches themselves, maybe penetrating inland during the late afternoon, early evening hours. Then we have this front that approaches for Friday. I'm wondering if these showers are a little overdone on the GFS. There is some semblance of a bit of a wave here Friday night, so I'm thinking that this could mean for some thunderstorm development across the mid-Atlantic states and maybe into southern New Jersey for Friday night as that front kind of settles down in terms of its timing. And then you have this high to the north that's going to build in. Here's that next storm system that's going to be forming out in Texas. And that high to the north is going to cool things down here for the weekend. So when we move it forward, now I still think there's going to be probably a significant severe weather outbreak in some areas Friday night into Saturday. There actually may be one tomorrow over parts of the southern plains. So we're going to have to watch out for that. And then as we move on into Friday night into Saturday, I think there could be a threat for severe weather. But here in the east, this high is going to build in, and I think it may build in at least enough so that we'll have no rain threat for the weekend, even though on Saturday morning there are going to be some showers in the southern Delmarva Peninsula down into Virginia, North Carolina. But it looks like that high wants to kind of press south, so that's good. And the onshore flow tends to relax a little bit, but it's still there for Sunday. So I'm thinking temperatures over the weekend will be in the 60s to near 70. And then the next weather front approaches on Monday with some showers and thunderstorms. Now let's jump to the long term, because we've been talking about the fact the last couple of days that the blocking pattern is coming back. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years, that when you have something that appears kind of out of the ordinary and it's of great magnitude, like that big blocking high that was almost to an extreme, the atmosphere doesn't kind of shake it off right away. It may get rid of it, but it'll have a tendency to want to do it again, and maybe the second time around not nearly as formidable. Now, we do have signs of that happening here at the end of the week, and you can see this ridge that's building up toward Greenland. That is the beginnings of what's going to be another blocking high. Here's that big system out in the west. You've got the ridge in the east, so we're still very warm here on Friday. There's that trough's going to swing on through to bring the cold front in. Now here's that blocking high. It's not as strong as the last one, but it is building, and right into next week. And what it does as we go through next week is, as pressures continue to rise up in the polar regions of the North Atlantic, it forces a deep trough into the Midwest and a ridge along the West Coast. And you'll notice that a low pops up again in the Azores. So we have a weak system that's moving through Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. So the signature of what the Atlantic usually looks like in these situations is there. And I'm wondering whether this is going to mean, certainly I think it means a return to average temperatures, or maybe even a little bit below average. And the other question is, because as we move through the Memorial Day holiday weekend, we are going to have this blocking signature here. So, I mean, this kind of a setup is, for this time of year anyway, is very cool. And also, we have to ask ourselves whether there will be any weather systems embedded in all this that could make it a rather cloudy, wet weekend. I'm not saying all 3 days will wind up being that way, but I think we have to consider the fact that if we're going into a blocking pattern for this time of year, we know that that does not always mean ideal weather. And oftentimes, if it doesn't mean rain, it certainly could mean days with lots of clouds and winds off the ocean and temperatures that are going to be running cooler than average. So I think that's where it stands here going forward. Once that process of blocking builds, the western part of the United States will be in a ridge position. So that means the weather there will be calming down. Okay, so we're going to leave it at that today. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I would appreciate it. All you new subscribers, welcome, and do participate in the conversation, because I do. Place your comments and thoughts in the comment section. I'm always interested in what you have to say and think about what I do, and certainly also welcome and open to any ideas you might have. If you have any specific questions, by all means, send them along. I'll be glad to answer them. And you can check the latest website posts on meteorologistjoechaffe.com. And by the way, if you're in the New York, Long Island area, I will be making 2 library appearances, one on Wednesday, May 31st at the Patchogue Medford Library in Patchogue, New York on Main Street. That's on Long Island. And just about a couple of miles west of Patchogue on Saturday, June 3rd, I will be there at the Sayville Library. The Sayville Library at 2 o'clock on Saturday, and the Patchogue Medford Library is at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, the 31st. And there's information about that on my Facebook page, and I will also be putting up a post on my website about it as well. Facebook page is Meteorologist Joe Ciaffe. All right, everybody, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.